Well, right, we are back and welcome back. This is Citizen TV Live. We'll be going to the debate in a couple of minutes, but in this studio, we are looking at the issues that fans and other stakeholders want to be tackled. In those views that we've heard from Mashinani, they've talked about structures and growth from the grassroots. As an administrator, Lord Vic, how, in a nutshell, very quickly, how feasible is this? Is it possible to put up a structure that will develop football right from the grassroots level to the top?
But so to speak, all these structures are contained within the FKF constitution. So I don't know which structures people are talking about.
Then maybe they don't see them working.
That is a part of the problem, because we find that the emphasis, since we started, the emphasis is on the FKF president. Football is not run by the FKF president. Football is run by the standing committees, which I believe must have been moribund for the better part of the 8 years. For instance, we were talking about, Wakili was talking about the issue of players, local players versus international players. We have within the FKF constitution a committee that deals with the player status committee. That is the committee that is supposed to be dealing with the local issues. Yeah. Now, if they are moribund, we are going to have similar problems again.
So that means these structures are within the constitution.
Yes.
And implementation is what
is wanting.
Okay.
And to mention something, it is the National Executive Committee, right? We have the General Assembly, which is the supreme organ of the Federation. Of course, we have the executive wing, the National Executive Committee, headed by the President. And then we have the administrative unit, which is headed by the General Secretary or the CEO. I mean, there has to be an order through which all these activities, once the policies have been approved by the General Assembly, it is the responsibility of the President and the NEC to ensure that the General Secretary, implements all these things, working in tandem with the standing committees.
Okay, standing committees, very important. Maureen, when it comes to infrastructure, fans have complained about infrastructure all the time. Nairobi right now, if you're not playing in Dandora, matches in wapi? Machakos. How uncomfortable is this for fans? Does it keep the fans away from the game?
Yeah, in terms of infrastructure, like the stadiums, it gets quite, and it's quite cumbersome for a fan to travel all the way. And then in between, you find the dates of the matches have been switched, at times because of the unavailability of the stadiums. So it's quite, it's quite cumbersome. It makes someone feel so uneasy, like you hadn't planned for something. Like right now, we are either in Muranga or Dandora or in Machakos. And all those there, the distance matters for the fans. Some of the fans, they really love to have something that they can go to, like a walking distance.
But access to the stadium.
Yeah, accessibility to the stadium.
We'll pick up on the other issues as we move along. Right now, the other studio is ready. We have the candidates, we've got our moderators. We go to Rashid and Swila. Over to you guys. Let's do this.
Na mtazamaji, karibu sana, ikiwa ni nafasi ya kipekee sana ya kuweza kuangalia mwelekeo wetu wa soka hapa nchini Kenya, ikiwa ni siku ambayo wadau ambao wanapenda soka majumbani wamekaa kufuatilia runinga Citizen TV, na hapa nchini Kenya, hapa studioni pia vile vile Michael Kinyu, upande wa pili ako na wadau Zita, pia vile vile na wapenzi wa soka, ikiwa lengo ni kuhakikisha kwamba tunapata mtu sahihi atahakikisha kwamba yale mazuri yanaendelea na yale ambayo yalikuwa sio mazuri yanafanyiwa marekebisho ya haraka sana ili soka yetu inawiri na faida ziwepo sio tu huku mijini lakini pia vile vile mashinani.
Thank you very much, Rashid Abdallah. As you've said, this is the long-awaited day. The FKF Presidential Debate is all set and ready to go down. Already, we have the candidates in studio and ready to pitch their case to the public. Beginning with my far right is Mr. Sami Kempes Owino. Next to him is Mr. Barry Otieno. And the third gentleman is Mr. Tom Alila. The fourth gentleman is Mr. Cleophas Shimanyula. And last is Mr. Samuel Ochola. Gentlemen, welcome to this live debate on Citizen TV. And we hope we are going to have a very solid engagement in the next 2.5 hours or so. But first things first, here are the rules of engagement. All the candidates are going to have 2 minutes each to introduce yourself and pitch your case why you feel you are the best man to take Kenyan football forward. Secondly, we are going to have a very sober and civilized debate. No name calling. If you disagree with the point made, you will have a rejoinder, but let's be very, very civil in this engagement. Lastly, each of you will have a minute of rejoinder. That is, if one of you has differed or made a point touching on you, you'll have 1 minute rejoinder. We are also joined by a live audience who are seated behind me and Rashid.
Na bila shaka kama ulivyoeleza ni kwamba tunakuwa na majadiliano muhimu sana, maana lengo ni soka, lengo sio mtu binafsi. Na hapa nyuma yetu pia vile vile wapo wapenzi wa soka, wadau, wakufunzi, wachezaji, wapenzi, waandishi ambao pia watapewa fursa yao ya kuuliza maswali nyinyi kila mmoja ataweza kukizungumzia, na pia kuwaonya tu kwamba kusherekea leo ni marufuku. Sherekeaji utafanyika baada ya uchaguzi umefanyika. Kwa hiyo leo ni kukaa kimya, kusikiliza, hakuna kupiga makofi, hakuna kusherekea, hakuna kuzomea mtu. Ni kuwasikiliza alafu baadaye tutawapa nafasi na nyinyi muulize maswali. Mwisho wa kwisha Kenya isonge mbele na inawiri katika masuala ya soka. Lakini kwanza kabisa tukianza na Kempes, umekuwa nje ya nchi, umerudi nchini Kenya, umesema nataka kuwa rais wa shirikisho la soka. Kwa nini? Kwa dakika 2.
Yeah, asante sana kwa kutualika hapa hivi, nashukuru sana. You know, mimi I played football for the national team. I've been a football player at the highest level in Kenya. So I went to the US for further studies, and I developed, I ended up graduating in engineering, electrical engineering. Then I ended up going back to football, getting into the business of football, building a first-class academy, getting involved in building of infrastructure. And so I touched every area of football. And having been there for a while and having done that, it got to a point where, you know, given what football has given back to me and seeing what problems we were having in the country, I felt that there's a need for me to come back and that I would give back. And so for me, I'm running for this position because I feel that I can give back and build Kenya football to where it needs to be.
Na bila shaka meweza kueleza kwa makini. Kala nimpishe mwenzangu, sisi tutakuja kwa habari. Ni sura ambayo imekuwepo, ni sura ambayo yataka kuwepo. Kwa nini?
Thank you. I think Rashid, Swila, Royal Media for inviting us here. My story is a typical football story. And I think my journey demonstrates that you can be born and come from a humble background, but also rise and transition from being a player to a coach to a football administrator. I was born in a small slum called Huruma Estate, started playing football at the age of 7. I have also been a coach through the MISA program. I joined FKF in 2016 as a head of communication. 2017 was made head of communication and marketing. 2019 to when I resigned was made CEO, and football has been part of my journey. I feel that my experience as CEO gives me the knowledge and in-depth skill set to take Kenyan football going forward. So that's why I'm offering myself for the FKF candidacy.
And next is Tom Alila. Please tell us a brief background about yourself and why you want to be the next FKF chief.
I was elected as a NEC member for Nyanza in 2011. So I've been in football administration since that time. going for AFCON. We're not going for Chan. We are going to go for Chan because we are the ones hosting. But the problems, as I said, has been governance. That's why I came back to sort out this governance issue in football. That's all it takes. Talents are there. It's just to have things working. That's all we need in football.
Have things working, and of course...
Yes, and to put order in how leagues are managed. We must also have order in football development. In my manifesto, I've said that I'm going to expand, if elected, in the first 100 days to bring in the schools, secondary schools, and other institutions so that we can widen the gap. FIFA golden age for training football development is 9 years. And these kids, we stay with them at home for 120 days. The rest of the days they're in school. So the development must start there. And also to widen the base to have the sub-branches coming in as members of FKF. You can see the way election is going on is so lopsided because the people who now vote, people in football, are now represented. They are not there because football is supposed to be played at the sub-branches. So that's what I'm going to do, to have wider people coming in FKF as association to make the development work so that Harambee Stars can have a feeding system through schools. The girls who went to World Cup in Dominican Republic, they came from schools. So that's what we need to now sort out so that we can have a conveyor belt that Harambee Stars can be fed and they can make it to the World Cup.
Yeah, your time is up, Tom, but thanks for that. Next to you is Mr. Cleophas Shimanyula. Tell us briefly about yourself and why you want to be the next Football Kenya Federation President.
Asante sana, nashukuru sana kwa mwito wenu hapa. Kwa majina naitwa Cleophas Shimanyula, nikiwa mfanyabiashara mashuhuri mwenye kazi tofauti zaidi ya 12. Mimi kitu nimefanya, nimekuja katika hii mpira, nina experience, niko na timu ya mpira since 2008. Ninajua wachezaji wanapitia nini, najua wale referees wanapata shida gani, najua viwanja iko na shida gani, na najua kama Harambee Stars yetu bila inatupeleka vibaya kwa sababu ya usimamizi mbaya. Mimi kwangu nitasema kwamba experience ambayo niko nayo ndio nimesema nijitokeze katika katika hiki kinyang'anyiro kwamba nihakikishe niwe ndio nitachaguliwa. Mungu akijalia Jumamosi, nihakikishe nimeweka kila kitu sawa sawa. Wale waliokuwa kule kwenye ofisi wametulet down sana. Tumekuta kama referees wetu wa Kenya wajalipa for the last 3 years. Tumekuta kwamba wachezaji wetu wengi wale wamekuwa kama hii timu ya ladies football wamekuwa na shida kubwa sana. Walikuwa kila saa wakienda kwa kampu ni kunywa soda na mkate, ambao motivation yao imekuwa very down. So kwangu kama Cleophas Shimanyula nimesema nitataka kubadilisha mpira ikuwe kama biashara. Yaani mtu akiwa kwenye mpira, hata mchezaji anajua ni nini atapata akitatoka katika hiyo kiwanja, atapata nini. Tumekuwa na shida kama hao ladies, bado nasema ladies wamekuwa hata ukienda kuangalia pads zao kupata ni shida, wanakwenda kule wanatumia gazeti. Mimi nimesema ndahakikisha nimepanga kila kitu ambayo ni kizuri, ikuwe hygienic kwa watoto wetu. Na pia tukiangalia kama Harambee Stars tumeperform poorly because wamekuwa na ubinafsi. Unakuta mtu mmoja kama ndio president, yeye anataka wachezaji wake ndio waonekane kila mahali. Mimi nimesema nataka usawa, na wale wananijua mimi sio mtu wa kuongea bure. Na nimesema pia nimeweza kuhandle pesa mingi zaidi. Kwa hivyo mimi pesa sio kitu ya kujitisha, na sijakuja kutafuta pesa ya federation. Nitahakikisha pesa yetu ambayo inakuja katika federation kila wakati tunaitoa inakuwa gazetted. Hata wale wenye teams wanajua, teams kama National Super League, Premier League, wanajua haki yao iko wapi. So sina wasiwasi yoyote. Kwangu nasema kwa hao wote ambao tumesimama, wenzangu ambao wamesema tutaji majina, wote hakuna mtu akona timu ajui uchungu wa timu.
Na naona muda wako umesonga. Shukrani sana kwa hilo. Samu Chola, labda kwako uweze kutueleza kwa kifupi wewe ni nani na kwa nini unaona wewe ndio unastahili kwa hii nafasi.
Thank you very much. Good morning all viewers. My name is Samu Chola. I'm the current Secretary General of Gor Mahia Football Club. And I'm standing here today because I want to enter into the federation office as the president. And the one reason that we have is that the present federation run by Nick Mwendwa and his group has really let down Kenyans. We have realized that they can't manage football in the country, and we're happy that it's election time. There's no transparency in that office. We want to go and make it transparent. We want to make sure that football goes back to the grassroots level. We want to make sure the grassroots teams get funding. We want to make sure all delegates from the chairman of every county is also supported financially to be able to run those counties and make sure that football is developed in those areas. I think we have really suffered as Gor Mahia, which is the biggest club in Kenya. Every time we win the league, sometimes we don't get any money, or we're given a cup and then accolades. We see people clapping for us for winning the league. There's no incentives for us to actually want to play in this league. So we want to put money back into football. We want to make sure that people like Harambee Stars come back and they're strong. We want to make sure the women football teams are well taken care of. As Shimanyula said, it's very bad to see our ladies don't have very basic needs, and yet they're playing their league. They don't have even footballs. They're not supported in any way. And that's not only the ladies' clubs, even the men's clubs. The federation does not support football. It frustrates us. It does not pay referees. It doesn't pay international coaches who are actually managing the Harambee Stars. So we really need to change that face, and I'm there to change all that. Thank you.
Yeah, shukran sana.
Thank you very much, Rashid, of course, and all the candidates. At this point in time, we would like to announce and inform the general public that we extended an invitation to all the 8 presidential candidates. However, 3 of them have not honored the invite. That is Ms. Doris Petra, Mr. Hussein Mohammed, and Mr. Chris Amimo. Once again, we extended invitation to all the 8 candidates, but 3 of them did not show up: Doris Petra, Chris Amimo, and Mr. Hussein Mohammed. Gentlemen, now let's change the topic and go right into it. And I'll begin with you, Mr. Kempes Owino. You have 2 minutes to expound your vision for this. Sports infrastructure is a major challenge. It's an Achilles heel in our country, both at the national level and at the county level, and even the top tier, KPL. What vision do you have? What are you going to do to ensure the issue of infrastructure is dealt with? All our clubs, 18 of them, don't have stadiums of their own, not even training facilities.
I have the core vision for me, for the 3 things that are important in my vision is governance, infrastructure, and grassroots football. So I'm just going to address the infrastructure. I think there's 2 kinds of infrastructure for me. One is the physical infrastructure, which is the fields, and the other one is the other infrastructures related to building the infrastructure in all areas for football, like in the youth football, in coaching, in scouting, in any area of football. So I'll address 2 infrastructure. I know you're addressing the physical infrastructure, which is the fields. Clearly, we have a problem when our national team is playing away from home. That's an issue, and that needs to be addressed. I think where we are now, where we are depending on government, and we're also depending on counties to build our stadiums, there needs to be a better working relationship between the government and the federation. For me, I am involved. I build infrastructures, major infrastructures in the U.S. My main infrastructure has 78 acres, has multiple fields, has structures in it, and I've built multiple of those. So I have the experience of building infrastructure that I can come to bear when it comes to helping the government or the county build the infrastructure. So I want to be involved in that process, and I want to engage the government to where the federation can be involved. Given that I have the experience, I think I can help. But for the other thing I want to address is how do we not just depend on government and counties to build infrastructure, because I've traveled around the country and I've seen the infrastructures that have been built, and they are not good at all. Some of them are incomplete, poorly done, and then there's the other issue of management that we have to address. So we need to encourage the government to give incentives to private investors to be able to invest in building stadiums. As a business person, I would be interested in building a stadium, for example, because I feel like it is good business. And government needs to recognize that if you allow private investors to get into that partnership, then what happens is that you end up saving money by not investing in the stadium. you end up, when people come to the games, businesses around there benefit. So there's a lot that comes out of that.
Your time is up on that.
Barry Otieno, kwako ni kwamba unajivunia hali ya viwanja vyetu ilivyo nchini kwa sasa. Kwanza, swali la kwanza, na kama hujui ni kitu gani ambacho ungewaambia Wakenya ambacho hukufanya unaamini kwamba ukifanya sasa hivi hali itakuwa tofauti?
Thank you, Rashid. Thank you, Swila. I think infrastructure forms a critical component of football development at two levels. So we have an issue of infrastructure at the grassroots level where we do not have enough open fields, not even stadiums, open fields for kids to train. And we have the issue of infrastructure at a national level, if you could call it that, where our clubs do not have stadiums, but also we find ourselves in a situation where the national team, Harambee Stars, have been forced to go and play outside. Now, the federation does not build infrastructure. And if I stand here and tell you that I will build stadiums, I'll be lying. We need to engage government closely and collaborate with government to put in open spaces for our kids, especially at the estates. We need to discuss with county government the possibility of having FKF and FKF branches use schools for development of football. But also at a national level, I'm happy that I was involved in the designing of Talanta Stadium and the renovations that are going on at Nyayo and Kasarani in readiness for CHAN and AFCON. If elected, this is the path we intend to continue doing. And then the other part of it is to bring in commercial partners, and I'll give this as an example. Have conversations with government and with the private sector where Safaricom might be given naming rights to put up a stadium, or some of the betting firms that are there. So this is what we are keen on doing. It's something that we believe is achievable. Does FKF have money to build stadiums? No. Can we do it jointly with other partners, government, private sector? Sure, we can. Thank you.
Mr. Tom Alila, of course, Barry, you've been brief. You still have 2 minutes to go, but you donate it to Mr. Tom. Tom, from where you are seated, and you've served in the FKF National Executive under the previous office, you've listened to what Barry says. He admits there's a challenge, but he tells us the Federation can't do this. But what vision do you have to ensure that the dilapidated facilities we have does not be a thing of the future 4 years into your tenure?
When I was first elected as NEC member from Nyanza, there was no proper playing surface in Nyanza. And courtesy of FIFA, we got the first goal project for doing the surface in Moi Stadium. I think it's one of the best surfaces in East Africa. As I agree with Barry, the Federation does not build stadiums. It's a mandate for the government. But as we said, the government is the biggest partner or sponsor in sports as a whole. And I think they are now doing very well. I think the stadiums now are being done for upcoming AFCON and CHAN competitions. I think they have done a good job. Only that time, I think the other day, CAFA said that we have to be able to do this, the stadiums by 30th of this December. So I think they are putting more effort. And if I'm elected, I think the main thing that I will do is to work very closely with the government. Even though the people who are elected have not put so much emphasis in sports. So
sorry, Tom, for interjecting, but yes, you're talking of working closely with the government. Could you define that? Because we've also seen past offices, and even the current office has not really had a very smooth relationship with the government of the day.
Yeah, I think to sort out that issue, we have now a Sports Act, which is not intertwining with the current FKF constitution. They need to be aligned. So I think the government has been waiting on this side, and FKF constitution is not aligned with how they are supposed to work. As I said before, the government is the biggest sponsor in football or in sports in this country. And as I say, that FKF does not build stadiums. So we just encourage, we have to work with them closely, and also make sure that the way he said, all schools have to do development. They have playing surfaces that needs to be improved in my agenda. As I said before, That's where we need to start development and building infrastructure working with the counties.
Time imesonga. Cleophas Shimanyula, nafikiri umeweza kumsikia Bahari aliyekuwepo katika shirikisho akionyesha kwamba sio rahisi kama unavyofikiria kuwa pale kama rais wa shirikisho, kwamba sio utapata mteremko. Hii inakuonesha wewe utakuwa na mabadiliko gani kuhakikisha kwamba miundo msingi yetu Kenya masuala ya soka iko sawa?
Asante sana Rashid na mwenzako. Mimi nitasema kwamba kwangu mimi nitahakikisha kwanza kule grassroots nitashughulika naye sana, kwa sababu kule grassroots nitahakikisha wale branches wote wamekuwa wakiahidiwa pesa nenda rudi, unakuta hakuna pesa nenda kule. Mimi nimesema nitahakikisha nimetenga milioni 200 kwa kila branch, so that tuhakikishe tumewa support kule chini kuanzia kule mashinani. Na pia nita make sure hii mchezo ambayo imekuwa na hii federation imepita ya kusema wanataka 70% ndio wapatie sponsor wakati wa kupata nafasi. Mimi nimesema watapata percent ambayo sitaitisha hao ni 0%.
Kufanua pengine kidogo hiyo 70%, kufanua tu hiyo 70%.
70% sponsor akija. Na nataka nieleze na sponsor akija, tuseme kwa mfano Mozart amekuja nataka kusponsor Kenya Premier League. Federation ambayo tumekuwa nayo ambayo ilikuwa fisadi zaidi, ambayo serikali hajatusaidia kwa kuhakikisha kumweka kwenye jela, wamekuwa wakiuliza 70%, yani 70% waweze kupata. Niko nayo kwamba ukipata 70% ama 60 ndio waweze kukubalia wao wawe sponsor. Kwangu nimesema itakuwa 0 to 5%, kwa sababu kitu tunahitaji ni watoto wetu waweze kupata nafasi ya kupata njia ya kujisaidia. Alafu pia nita make sure urafiki kama saizi na urafiki na counties zote, governors wote na wajua, wabunge na wajua Kenya mzima. Nita make sure nimeunda urafiki na wao governors pamoja na pia shule, nitaunda urafiki na shule, kwa sababu bila viwanja hakuna mahali tutapata nafasi yoyote ya watoto kutrain. Na pia niseme kwamba mimi nitahakikisha nimeleta wale engineers ambao wako qualified, sio kama walichagua watu hata mtu hajasomea engineer anaenda kutengeneza stadium ambayo tunafika mwisho pesa ya serikali imetumiwa na kwenda kuangalia inakuwa ni class ambayo haiwezi kutusaidia. Hivi majuzi hata umeona Harambee Stars hatukuweza kuchezea Kenya kwa sababu hatukuwa tunaweza ruhusiwa. Kwa sababu gani? Ile stadium watu wamekuwa wafisadi, wamekula pesa yote ya Kenya, imeenda kabisa. Na sana ndahusika na sponsors na pia zile corporates ndajaribu kama Butali Sugar, wakati tulikuwa kama wakati ya Nzoia Sugar, nihakikishe niwatafuta Safaricom, tuhakikishe stadium zetu zimekuwa facilitated vizuri na mpira yetu ya Kenya, Wakenya warudi hapa. Na pia nitahakikisha pia security iko nzuri zaidi, kwa sababu bila security ndio unaona kama mpira ikiwa
na vita umesonga. Lakini kama nilete Sam, nafikiri ni vizuri tuje kwa Bahari ili kuweza kufafanua, kwa sababu amesema imekuwa ndio uongozi uliofisadi zaidi, akitoa mfano ya kwamba hamkubali chochote paka mpate mgao wa 70%. Madai mazito kabisa, anasema ana ushahidi dhidi hilo. Unalipi la kusema Bahari?
Thank you, Rashid. I think one is to say that I no longer work for the federation. I was an employee under contract and resigned. But I can comment during my period. The contracts that I saw and signed had no clause where the federation needed to get 70% of anything. I believe these are public documents that were shared with the FKFPL clubs, and if you have evidence, it would be good to table it for the audience and even the general public. Thank you.
Shukran sana kuweza kufafanua hilo.
Of course, Samuel Ochola, rather, I'll come to you. And you've heard what your colleagues or competitors have said, but you are the Secretary General of the most decorated football club in Kenya, Gor Mahia. As we speak, Gor Mahia don't have even a training facility of their own. More than 60 years since the club was born. They don't have any plans for a stadium. Sami, you sit as the SG, rather the CEO. SG. You've not done it at Gor Mahia. Why should the public trust you that you're going to do this when you become the federation boss?
Thank you very much for that question. Gor and FC is the oldest. Gor is the most, successful. I think as these guys said earlier on, my presidential candidates here, building a stadium, every fan of Gor Mahia wants a stadium to be built. We have very few teams in the world that own stadiums. And this is in the first world. So when we come to Africa here and you come to Kenya and Nairobi, and you tell us that Gor Mahia must have a stadium, I think that is trying to give us too much work. A stadium is a very expensive project. The government, you can see in Kenya, is even being defeated to maintain the stadiums they have. 2 weeks ago, the derby couldn't be played because we don't have a stadium that can hold a derby in Kenya. Our game was between Gor and FC was cancelled. So we want to ask the government today Do we want to start going to play in Tanzania and Uganda for our derbies because we don't have a field that is available for Gor Mahia and FC to play? So that is how bad it is. So when you come and ask me, why does Gor not have a stadium? I think the answer is very simple. They're beyond our reach. Most of the time, the sponsorships we have can barely even manage the teams, and we don't have corporate companies really supporting us. Yes.
Sami, allow me to come in.
Yeah.
You've traveled the world, and Gor have been to the Arab North several times,
Yes.
playing continental matches. You've been part of that. You've seen what clubs in the Arab North are doing. Those clubs own stadium by their own initiatives. You've seen what's happening down south in South Africa. I think it requires visionary leadership, proper planning, and partnerships. Are you probably telling us there's nothing we can't do about this?
One thing, Gor and FC have land. We were given land by the late President Moi at Kasarani. But how do you build a stadium in Kasarani when we have Kasarani Stadium? Okay, so first and foremost, even if we were given the go-ahead to utilize that land, we cannot build another stadium there. We can build a training ground and maybe have a clubhouse and all that. But our home ground as Gor Mahia is Kasarani Stadium. Now, if we can afford to make Kasarani our home ground, why do we need another stadium? Why do we need to build a stadium at this age and time? And you need to give us a break, because you're talking about South Africa and Egypt. Those countries are well beyond, their economies are very big, almost twice as big as what Kenyan economy is. So if you look at the teams, the sponsorships they have, like Coca-Cola and all that, they put in 10 times more money than what we are getting, say, from our local sponsors here. The average player in some of these teams who are playing, Al-Ali, the average player is paid 1.2 million shillings. Us guys, we're paying 120 shillings, 120,000.
Your time is up.
Yeah.
Sam, you're telling us we need to give you a break regarding this. I want to pose the same question to Sammy Kempes. Sammy, you played for Gor Mahia more than 40 years ago. You've gone to the US, set up a thriving academy in Texas, if I'm not wrong. You've heard what your colleagues say. We give them a break. Do you think that's the right approach, and probably what would you do differently to ensure that these clubs have stadiums of their own or training grounds?
I think what it is that we just like visionary leaders. It's just that simple. Clubs can build stadiums. I have a 40 acres in Kajiado that I bought. I'm developing it, and one of the things I'm building there is a stadium, plus 2 practice fields, plus an academy, and also a hotel. You don't have to have the money. You just have to have the ability to have a vision, and the ability to be able to understand what it takes to make it happen. My expectation is that a club like Gor Mahia and FC, and all our clubs for that matter, at the very least they should have practice field and a clubhouse. And for me, there is no excuse for it. We as a country can have more stadiums. We can have more stadiums, but we need to engage the government and sell them on the idea that it is in their best interest to incentivize private companies, because building a stadium is like any other business. There's need for stadiums. That means there's a market for people to want to come and use the stadiums. So my vision is a little bit different. The way I see it is different. I think it's more lack of leadership with vision than anything else.
Excuse, can I just
in a
talk
minute.
to him? I've been to the US. I've been to Kempes' facility in the US, in Dallas. And as much as he's talking about visionary leadership, he has open grounds where he trains people, young kids and all this, young rich kids. But even when I went there was no clubhouse, there was no resting place. We were sitting under a tree on benches to watch all these kids playing. So if he's talking about visionary and he's not done it in the US, I don't see him doing it here in Kenya. So when he's talking about that is the basic thing and he can't do it in the US, so how is he going to manage to do it in Kenya? You see, if he has about 4 or 5 fields, all they're very well kept and all that, but there's no clubhouse there. People just go, you change, and the only thing that is there is plastic toilets and all that. So I think he should not lie that it's about visionary. I'm just saying stadiums are very expensive to build. That's it. One day we will do that, but maybe not in my time when I'm in Gor Mahia. I think maybe other people come in. But I know that at this time and age, with the kind of money we have, we cannot afford to build stadiums.
Can I just answer that real quick, because it's not
very
true.
important, because amesema kwamba ni academy jina tu kwa Marekani, lakini alikuja kuona kitu cha
Atuonyeshe picha bwana.
Number one, I think you can go to the AC's website and see the quality of the facility. Secondly, when he came, we didn't have a clubhouse. Now we do have a clubhouse. In addition to that,
that was just last year.
No, it wasn't last year. We do have a clubhouse. This is easy to prove. I can show people that. So that's not a point. But in addition to that, we have more than one facility. So it's not just the facility he saw. We have another one as well that has a whole lot more than that. It's in a place called, it's in a city. It's in a city not too far from where we are. And I would be glad to show people that one as well.
Thank you so much. Sam Kepesi sema kwamba kwa muda mchache utupa picha tutafurahi taziweka hewani wananchi waone kinachoendelea, lakini asante kwa awamu yetu ya kwanza. Nataka tuende upande wa pili tukuje tuangalie ni kwa nini mashirika mengi, kampuni nyingi zinaogopa kuwekeza katika soka hapa nchini Kenya. Wanaogopa kwamba kuna ufisadi ama kuna uongozi katika afisi zetu za shirikisho la soka. Nataka mtafakari hilo, tukirudi itakuwa ni fursa ya kuanza kusoma swala ya governance and accountability. Lakini kwanza kabisa, Michael Kinyi, nafikiri umeweza kusikia mengi yakizungumzwa na baadhi wa ugombea wa rais wa shirikisho la soka hapa nchini Kenya. Ni kwako uzungumze na wataalamu, watueleze endapo wameridhika ama hawajaridhika.
Tumesikia yale ambayo wagombea wanasema kuhusiana na viwanja na infrastructure zingine za kandanda. Kwa sasa tusikie maoni ya wale ambao wamejiunga nasi kutoka Kisumu, alafu tutaendelea kutoka hapo. Kwenye Kisumu.
Kama team manager na vile nimewahi cheza mpira hapo awali na niko na ujuzi kidogo ya coaching pia. Kwanza ningetarajia kwamba mwenye atawahi chaguliwa katika uchaguzi yenye na kuja tarehe 7 awe kwanza mtu mwenye ako na nidhamu. Ya pili lazima awe mtu mwenye amependa mpira. Ya tatu lazima awe mtu mwenye hana ufisadi. Kwa sababu Kenya hapa ukiangalia nyuma yangu utaona kuna michezo ya vijana wasiozidi umri wa miaka 17. Hii michezo iliundwa na Kenya Football Federation, na ukiangalia ni sisi tunalipa referees, na sasa unajiuliza au vile walileta kama youth, inaitwa youth football, FKF Youth League. So nini yao sasa iko huko ndani? Kwa sababu mimi ningependelea mwenye atakuwa kule, mwenye ataweza kuchaguliwa awe mtu mwenye akizundua michezo kama huu, lazima awe mtu mwenye anaweza iweka kwamba referees ni FKF ndio wanalipa, vijana wanapewa motisha, labda kuna mpira inapatiwana ama uniform ama viatu. Alafu vile pia lazima kwa kiwango ingine selection ya national team pia ifanyike kutokana kwa hizi leagues za youth.
Due to lack of unemployment in Premier League and the NSL, we find players be engaging in match fixing so that they can have something to take home after the match. This is due to lack of payment in some of the clubs.
Liangalie sana soka ya grassroots. Talent iko hapa chini na wengi tunateseka sana kwa sababu unapata hakuna support. Sana financially, hiyo ndio shida kubwa sana. Alafu ya pili, angalie timu za mademu wengi wao hawapati support na wanaenda sana season hata bila kupata kitu. So tukipata ule atakuwa sawa kwa hicho kiketi, itatusaidia sana na itatujenga sisi kama youth. At least tutapata nafasi na kuenjoy kenye tunafanya. Talent iko hapa na talent zinaharibika tu hapa chini kwa sababu hakuna support. So the main problem.
Well, views from Kisumu, they are talking about what they expect from the new FKF president. We dive into what has been discussed on the other studio, and we are lucky to have Lodvik here because, Lodvik, you are well aware of what Sam Ochola has talked about in terms of infrastructure, or everyone has their own plans for infrastructure, but we want clarification on some of these things. There is land in Kasarani that was allocated to Gor Mahia and FC Leopards. In a nutshell, where is this land? And why can't these clubs claim this land?
Well, the land was an allocation by the late President Daniel Arap Moi, but it was during the Sports Stadia Management Board tenure. I believe that nothing happened then to try and ensure that all the paperwork were done and the transfers done. It was a joint title. The trustees were the PS Treasury and the PS of the then Ministry of Social Services, Gender, and whatever it was then. Now, there was a change when Sports Kenya came into existence, and all the assets, like it was dictated by the Sports Act, that belonged to the then Sports Stadium Management Board, were transferred to Sports Kenya. So if there is anything at the moment, I believe there ought to be some a special arrangement, probably a cabinet approval for Sports Kenya to allow both AFC and Gor Mahia to proceed with trying to, obtain the requisite legal documents to enable them have those allotted pieces of land.
Chusi, is it salvageable? Can these clubs go with whatever document it is and they petition the state or Sports Kenya to actually transfer that land to them?
No, as Lord Vicar stated, a fluxion of time bars them, but probably it can be mitigated out of sympathy, hue and cry from the public, and I've seen sometimes most of the politicians, high-profile politicians, align themselves to both teams. So probably if a political tact can be brought forth, then it could attempt to cure. But the land rests with the government of Kenya, held in trust by Sports Kenya.
So basically, when we are saying Gor and FC tunajipiga kifua tuko na land, we don't have it.
It's only existing in the minds of those who believe that it exists.
Wow. Maureen, we've talked about, most candidates are talking about infrastructure, partnership with schools. Sunday League, ile ya wadau, ile watu wanaendanga kucheza sana. It has die-hard fans that you have your own league and you play in not big stadiums. Which fields do you use and how do you find it easier to use those ones more than maybe Nyayo or Kasarani or City Stadium?
Currently, the Wadau League held at the Absa Sports Club, and they are accessible. It's on Thika Road, it's accessible, and the Wadau has an agreement, like a sponsorship with the Absa. So we use the field there. It's a small one, but it's there. It's everyone fits in. And then there is the Wadau Premier League. They either use Ulinzi Complex or the Parkland Sports Club, which is also accessible. And we quite fit well, and it's fun, and everyone feels excited, and everyone fits in.
Mm-hmm. Chusi, you're burning to say something on that.
Yes, now on infrastructure, I would just like to highlight some things which probably the successful presidential candidate could bank on. Mm-hmm. Number one, many people are saying and agreeing, of course it's a constitutional duty of the government of Kenya, according to Schedule 4, which distributes the duties or demarcates the duties between the national government and the county governments. Yes, the national government is supposed to establish and construct sports facilities. But most of the people also, I don't know why they're not ruling out the capability or the ability to lure county governments. The Constitution again mandates the county governments also to have a hand or a bite in the cherry of developing sports facilities. Then secondly, on the partnership again by the county governments or the national government, probably we need to have serious professionals who have requisite knowledge on construction of stadium. Because what we are constructing are as a result of a phenomenon which we call stadiumology. Mm-hmm. What is stadiumology?
That's a new one, stadiumology.
Yes, stadiumology. You know, stadiumology has been brought forth by sports scholars. It is the bringing up or together of people on a stadium or in other infrastructure for probably show of might, to lure people for political convincing, and to demonstrate to demonstrate political capabilities. You know, when the Jubilee government was speaking about Kamarini Stadium, Wote Stadium,
Marsabit Stadium.
Yes, Marsabit Stadium. Don't be deluded to think that that government had a premonition of hosting AFCON 2027. No, it was only about stadiumology, the gathering of people for mostly political events.
So, and that's why, is it the reason why, sorry to cut you short, is it the reason why we've got all these so-called county stadiums being called international stadiums? But if you look at the parameters, do they hit even 40% of what is required for international stadiums?
No, international stadium perhaps in hosting people for political events. You know, the things which are constructed, first of all, when we look at stadiums, are we only looking at it with the limitation as to football as a sport? You know, a stadium encompasses a lot. We have VVIP, perimeter hall, media center. The so-called international stadiums are the manner in which they're being constructed right now cannot even subscribe. They're not even anywhere nearer to hosting Citizen TV when the media center. We do not even match. And I really pity people coming up for the AFCON or the CHAN. Unless we improve, we may not even employ the best of our media or the international media personnel.
We'll come into that. We'll come into that. But very quickly, in a minute before we go into the break, Lord Vic, we had the FIFA goal project. And I think in two phases, we did Kisumu and City Stadium. Why did we pick on Kisumu and City Stadium, but we only did the surface and not the other infrastructure in those stadia? In a minute before we go into the break.
Well, the goal projects had policies, and the policies was basically the playing surfaces. I was in charge of the Kisumu project, having been the Secretary General of the Federation then. I was appointed by FIFA to be in charge of that, together with Cyril Betems from France. And we were required to bring on board the then Kisumu city management. I remember we signed a memorandum with the then mayor of Kisumu, Sam Okello, that having done this playing surface, the other structural, improvements were supposed to be undertaken by the municipal, because one, the facility does not belong to FKF. The facility belonged to the Kisumu Municipal Council then, or the Kisumu county government at the moment. So the FIFA Goal project was just to do the surface? Just to do the surface. The other facilities were to be done by the municipalities? Yes. What was the obstacles in doing that? Well, I don't know, because we signed a 25-year, memorandum to that effect. But I remember having, at some point, when devolution came into place, I had a meeting with the first governor of Kisumu, Jack Ranguma, and I told him as much. This is what is expected. The little that was done was the perimeter wall. Only that? Yeah, which at some point lay for years under ruins, So that is what was put up. The rest of the core facilities that really make a stadium have never been put up to date.
Well, we take a break, a short one. But before that, tunaenda kwa Gatete Njoroge. Gatete is somewhere in Nairobi. And anatuambia shamra ambazo wako nazo na caravan ile ya Safaricom. Gatete, what do you have for us? I hope there is more mbuzi and kuku to be won today.
Naam, Michael Kinyi, jinsi ambavyo ulisema, msafara wa Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom hii leo imefika katika kaunti ya Kiambu, na hapa tunaanza katika mji wa Wangige, ambapo hivi sasa, iwapo mpiga picha wangu anaweza kuonyesha, ni kwamba wakazi wamejitokeza kwa wingi. Shughuli inaendelea. Tuna watangazaji wa sesheni tofauti za Royal Media Services, wakiwemo wale watangazaji kutoka Inoro FM, Radio Citizen. Pia kuna wanamuziki tajika kutoka eneo la Mlima Kenya. Lakini kando tu na kutoa zawadi za kuku, mbuzi, simu na hata kadi za simu, Safaricom pia imeendelea kuleta huduma mashinani. Iwapo mpiga picha wangu atakuonyesha, kuna duka mpya ambayo tayari imeweza kufunguliwa hapa, na ambayo itakuwa inawawezesha wakazi ambao wamekuwa wanatoka hapa wanaelekea maeneo ya Westlands kutafuta huduma za Safaricom. Kwa sasa Safaricom imeleta huduma mashinani, na kwa sasa wakazi wa eneo la Wangige wataweza kupata huduma za Safaricom hapa karibu. Lakini sitanena mengi, kwani nina maafisa wakuu kutoka Safaricom ambao wameweza kutembea pamoja nasi. Labda tupate tu mengi kuhusiana na msafara wa leo na juhudi ambayo Safaricom inafanya kuhakikisha kwamba huduma zao zinafika mashinani. Tutaanza kwanza na majina, utueleze na wadhifa wako katika kampuni ya Safaricom na shughuli ya leo vile inavyoendelea.
Sawa, asante sana wasikilizaji na ambao mnatupata. Leo tuko hapa Wangige. Jina langu naitwa Fauzia, nafanya kazi na Safaricom na tuko na furaha sana. Nimefika hapa kama dakika kidogo ifike saa 3, na watu walikuwa shaanza kufika hapa kwa sababu wamejua kuwa wakiona gari hii ya Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom hii krisi, wanajua ni mambo mazuri yanakuja karibu nayo. So tunasema tunasambaza furaha hii krisi. Kwa nini? Tuna celebrate 24 years of Safaricom. Tuna celebrate kuwa na wateja wetu ambao wamesimama nasi kutoka mwaka wa 2000. Wamesimama na sisi for all those years. So tukasema we cannot celebrate for one day only. Lazima tutembee nchi nzima to celebrate na customers wetu. So tulianza upande wa Rift, tukaenda upande wa Mount Kenya. Last week tulikuwa upande wa Greater Western. Leo tuko hapa Wangige. Tulianza Nairobi on Monday, na leo tutaenda mpaka tumalizie msafara wetu upande wa Juja. Kwa hivyo kama uko upande wa Juja, ungana nasi. Leo tuko hapa, tumefungua Safaricom Customer Care shop here, ilete huduma karibu. Nimeuliza mtaja mmoja walikuwa naenda wapi kupata huduma, akaniambia walikuwa naenda upande wa Westlands ama upande wa Village Market. Ni mbali kidogo. Sasa hii huduma imekuja hapa, itawasaidia sana. Leo pekee tutafungua 5 more shops that will bring care close to our customers. You know, tuko na only maduka about 40, lakini tumeona customers wetu wanataka huduma karibu. Kwa hivyo tumefungua nearly 500 maduka 500 across the country just to bring service close to our customers. Lakini leo tumekuja kufurahia. Leo ni mfumo wa Krismasi, lazima kuku tupeane. Tumepeana kuku, tumepeana mbuzi, tumepeana airtime. Wamama wamevaa leso, tumepewa mababa t-shirts na reflector jackets, kofia, airtime. Tukisema wateja wetu asanteni sana, tunawashukuru sana. Na partners wetu Citizen wametusaidia sana tukizunguka nchi nzima. Hii partnership imeendelea kuwa, tunasema asanteni sana.
Asante sana Michael Kinyi. Huyo ni Fauzia ambaye ni mmoja wa maafisa wakuu katika kampuni ya Safaricom, na vile ambavyo nimekueleza Mike ni kwamba tumeanza Wangige, tunaelekea maeneo ya Rwaka, maeneo ya Kiambu, maeneo ya Ruiru hadi kule maeneo ya Juja. Kwa hivyo wakazi wa maeneo yale wanaweza kutusubiri, msafara utafika pale, zawadi ni kemkem na pia huduma zinaletwa mashinani. Mike, naelewa kwamba tunaendelea na mjadala wa FKF. Kutoka hapa tutaendelea kukita kambi katika kaunti ya Kiambu, na tutazidi kuwajuza watazamaji wetu ni yepi yatakuwa yakiendelea katika msafara huu wa Sambaza Furaha na Safaricom hii krisi.
Asante sana Gatete Njoroge, ukiwa maeneo ya Kiambu County. We hope that you'll give those people good Christmas as we move on. Julius Yego, one of our former world champions in javelin, is following up on the conversation, and he says this one is for you, Rashid, and Swila on the other side. These aspirants should tell us what they will do to upgrade the game of football in Kenya for Harambee Stars to improve. The league should be well managed. The league should be very competitive. What is new in them that they want to bring? Please ask them. I think that is one of the topics that will be coming up in the next hour. That is leagues and competitions and how to develop this football from the grassroots level. We take a short break. When we are back, we continue with the FKF Presidential Debate live here on Citizen TV.